I want to circle back to something that occurred on our show yesterday because it happened later in the show. We talked about it. We reacted to it. I heard the afternoon show yesterday. Elliot will join us at 11, reacting to it. Morning show today because it's a fascinating concept that I hadn't thought about. So we had, for the past few months, we have talked about the concept of maybe the Eagles trading for a star pass rusher, right? There were three of them out there that were without contracts. First, it was Myles Garrett, but he got his contract. He's going to stay with the Browns. And the two that are still kind of dangling out there, Trey Hendrickson from the Cincinnati Bengals, T.J. Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Watt thing seems to be odd because the Steelers usually take care of their own, but they're getting all these other big names, and they haven't paid T.J. Watt. Yesterday, we had Andrew Fillipponi on from 93.7 The Fan. And throughout this whole process, when we talked about the Watt situation or Hendrickson or whatever, we kept bringing up draft picks, right? The Eagles have a lot of draft picks for next year, and maybe they could swap some of them, and then it was like, all right, well, how much is it worth trading for an older player? Do you trade a first-round pick, a second? Then you got to pay him. But yesterday on our show, Andrew Fillipponi, 93.7 The Fan, brought up a different kind of concept. What if it's not big draft picks the Eagles are trading to get a guy like T.J. Watt? What if it's a young player? Here's Andrew yesterday with us. And then I have a lot of thoughts as I've thought about this for the past, 22 hours. Would I do this? Here's Fillipponi with us yesterday. What kind of deal it could take to land T.J. Watt on the Eagles?
I used to just live in a world where it's like, all right, maybe a first-round pick is all you get back, but maybe there would be players involved. Like, if the Eagles called up the Steelers and said, we want T.J. Watt, we'll trade you Nolan Smith in a late-round pick, I think they'd make that trade. I really do.
So when he said that yesterday, both of us were like, whoa.
Intriguing.
Yes, because it was not something I had really thought about before. Typically, player-for-player acquisitions in the NFL don't happen. But we just saw one literally a couple days ago with the Steelers when they got Ramsey from Minka Fitzpatrick. So maybe this is what the Steelers are kind of thinking now. And I thought about it yesterday. So I want to make it clear. I really like Nolan Smith. Like I believe Nolan Smith's going to be a good Eagle. When he was drafted, I remember we said, I think we had him on like the day after he was drafted to you, and I was like, he reminds me of a young Brandon Graham. He has that infectious personality.
Yeah. He's
already a good player. I know he just had an incredible postseason run to help the Eagles. He was so good in the postseason.
Yes, he was.
And I think if nothing happens and he stays here, he's going to end up as one of the best Eagle defenders for the next 5 years. I really like Nolan Smith. But the more I thought about the concept, like Nolan Smith and a late-round draft pick for T.J. Watt, Hugh, the more I have to do it if I'm the Eagles. If it is out there, I have to. Let me hit a couple things that I've been thinking about. Number one, and I know you're going to bring this up. I know a lot of people have. He's cheaper, right? He's way cheaper, and that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
But he's only way cheaper for so long. So Nolan Smith was a first-round pick in 2023. And I heard even Joe this morning say, well, he's cost control for the next few years. Well, maybe. He could be. He's contract extension eligible after this season. Now, the Eagles don't have to do anything to his contract. Like, they could keep him cheap. But if they like him and he produces, I imagine the Eagles are going to pay Nolan Smith after this season. So, although he won't make as much as T.J. Watt, I understand that, he's not going to be dirt cheap for much longer. So that's one. Number two, if the Eagles don't get a T.J. Watt, where else is he going? If this blows up in Pittsburgh, where's he going to go? And I keep looking at the Commanders, and I'm like, man, they did a lot to that offense. They haven't touched that defense. They feel like they're a team that could do it. I don't want to see T.J. Watt on the Washington Commanders chasing down Jalen Hurts. The third thing that I think is important to note in this whole thing is while I like Nolan Smith a lot, I think there is a little bit of a red flag we're ignoring with him. He is a smallish defensive end that has had injuries in each of his first two seasons.
A little injury prone.
So the first year was the shoulder, and it kind of ruined his whole first year in the NFL. He didn't get to do much because he was kind of out of it the whole first year. And then he's coming off of a torn triceps in the Super Bowl. Is he going to hold up at 240 pounds? I don't know. I mean, maybe he is, but I don't know, and that's part of why this is on my mind. And the last thing is, I'm not saying Nolan is not going to be really good. I think he is. But are we getting fooled by a good second half of the season? He in his first year and a half in the NFL, he has, 7.5 sacks?
Yes.
He came on strong. But I've seen players have big postseasons, and then they kind of revert back the next year. I mean, Derek Barnett helped the Eagles win a Super Bowl. He made big plays in 2017. And then he never develops. Like, none of this is a lock. 215-592-9494. Ultimately, Hugh, if the Steelers called the Eagles tomorrow and they said, we'll give you T.J. Watt, give us Nolan Smith in a late-round pick. If I'm Howie, as much as it might be painful to trade away Nolan because he is really an awesome young player, I would do it. Hugh, we've had some time to marinate, 22 hours or so. Would you trade Nolan Smith for T.J. Watt?
Nah. And it was 6.5 sacks. It was 6.5 sacks he had last year.
Okay. And then one, I think one is a rookie.
Yeah.
So 2 years in, he's got 7.5 sacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. And you know what's funny? Like I saw some of the comments yesterday, and people were talking about, well, that's a no-brainer. I mean, nah, it's not. We know that T.J. Watt is a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
And we also know that a lot of times teams don't have they don't always get it right. You know, when you talk about when Brian Dawkins left here, they thought he was on the tail end of his career.
And he was not. He had time left.
He was not. But that's the chance that I feel like you're taking with a T.J. Watt. T.J. Watt has been injured about as much as Nolan Smith has been injured. Now, I know the numbers don't compare, but when you talk about the financials and the success that the Eagles have had over the years with the formula that they've brought, then this kind of goes outside of that. Normally when they get pass rushes, they get guys like who was a few years ago? Hassan Reddick, who was a little bit of a journeyman. They got him at a good deal, and when he wanted more money, they tended to move on from him. Now, I say all that because I feel like the more bang for your buck is what the Eagles are doing. They've allocated all their resources to the offensive side of the ball.
Oh, you like to remind us that?
I mean, because it's not like I'm it's not I told you so, Douglas. It's a fact. And yesterday, when Andrew talked to us, he threw something out there that I mean I knew, but when he said it, it really put it in perspective. The Pittsburgh Steelers made it to the playoffs last year, right? And they went home, one and done. Their defense, they allocated most of their resources to the defensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Did not get the job done, did not go deep in the playoffs. Now, this offseason, they went out and got some defenders, but they went and got a tight end for their new quarterback. They went and got a quarterback.
Well, they got a receiver.
They got a
Metcalf.
receiver.
Yeah.
They went out and they're doing it the other way, and now they're not paying their best pass rusher. So what does that tell you? It tells you that for them, he's expendable regardless to his Hall of Fame career. He's an expendable player because that's not the way the NFL is going right now. It's more of an offensive game. And you have this defender that's out there that's still playing at a high level, still put together a nice little resume last year, but he's looking for a contract. Him, Trey Henderson?
Mm-hmm.
Who else was looking for it? Well, that's about it. Those are the two big names that we know of.
And Mike is still looking for it.
Okay, yeah. Oh, I forgot about Micah. What does that tell you? That tells you Micah Parsons, all of these guys had double-digit sacks, if I'm not mistaken, last year. So it's not like they're slouches.
No, they're great players.
But they're not paying them. The only guy that got paid was the guy in Myles Garrett.
Yep.
Because he's younger. And Micah Parsons is in that same camp.
Well, Mike is the youngest of all of them. Yeah,
Micah's the youngest, but Micah's a one-trick pony. You know, it's funny. I had a chance to talk to Nate Newton a few weeks ago, and Nate was talking exactly about that. He's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers made him. He's exactly what the Dallas Cowboys made him. He's a one-trick pony. Now they don't want to pay him. They made him a pass rusher that disappears in the postseason. And now they don't want to pay him. So that tells you everything you need to know. I'm just reading the tea leaves on this. I wish all of those guys could get paid, but when you look at this NFL and the way the NFL is being ran right now, defensive players are expendable.
So I understand the point you're making on this and the point you've made all offseason, but the Eagles did win the Super Bowl on the back of the performance of their defense, and they have lost some. I mean, they lost a lot, actually, from that defense. And I'm looking at it like this. Like, in the next 5 years, will Nolan Smith eventually overtake Watt? Probably, right? Watt's 31 and Nolan's 24. There's going to be an inflection point where Nolan's probably the better player. Now, is that this year or is it 4 years from now?
Went to the Pass Rush Summit.
He did go to the Pass Rush Summit. And I think he's an awesome player. But the Eagles have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year again and next year after that. Like, they're in a window where they could become a dynasty. And to me, I'm simplifying it. Who gives the Eagles a better chance to win the Super Bowl this season?
No.
And I have it as, no, it's Watt.
It's not Watt.
Oh, it is Watt.
You know what's funny?
Who's a better player right now?
Watt's the better player.
No, that's it.
You know what's funny? And I heard somebody say this. Somebody said this, If we get T.J. Watt, we going back to the Super Bowl. That's not guaranteed.
Not guaranteed, but it gives them a better chance.
That's not guaranteed. No, the better chance is with the guys that you already have. See, this is the thing that I think people are missing. Nolan Smith has blossomed in this defense in only one season.
Yeah, I thought in the playoffs he might have been the most impactful edge rusher in the entire postseason. It was awesome.
In one season. And this is something that I know for a fact, is that it takes at least 2 years to get comfortable in the defense you're running. These guys, they improve leaps and bounds in one season. Now, now you have another year in this defense. What do you think it's going to be? And he's trying to improve his game.
It could be great. Like you could sell me right now and say, listen, Joe, Nolan Smith's going to be a Pro Bowler this year, and I'd buy it. There's also a chance that we're talking about a 239-pound edge rusher that gets hurt again. Like, I like the player, but he's not like Jalen Carter is a lock to me to be a great player as long as he keeps his head on straight. I don't view Nolan the same way. Nolan physically has a little bit less in the tank, right? Like, he's not as gifted, and he's a gifted player, but he could get hurt again, and then a year we're like, I like him, but he's hurt all the time. Do we need another edge rusher? Meanwhile, T.J. Watt, I know what I'm getting. And now, I don't know if he's going to do it for 4 more years, but I would think he's going to do it for 2 more years. And like, their window is right now. They've got all these great offensive players. They got Saquon in his prime. Let's go win a couple more Super Bowls. And again, I don't want to trade 4 number 1 picks. I don't want to mortgage the whole future. But if the Steelers would accept Nolan Smith and a late-round pick, I don't know how Howie Roseman turns that down. It's an opportunity to take a great team and make it greater.
You know why I'm so bullish on Nolan Smith right now is because of Robert Mathis. I remember when I came into the league, my coach, I was playing with the Jets, had me watch tape on Randy White. Randy White was the D tackle for the Dallas Cowboys. Smaller dude. Wasn't that big. And he said, you kind of remind me of him, the stature. And so I watched film on Randy, and I learned some of the things that he did from his D tackle position that I implemented at the defensive end position.
Yep.
Now, when I talk about Robert Mathis, go watch film on Robert Mathis. Just go look at him, Indianapolis Colts. Go look at him. He's a smaller defensive end. Robert was like 235 pounds, soaking wet. Has over 100 career sacks in the NFL. Was a monster at that position. And Nolan Smith is out there learning at his feet, soaking up all of that. Now, a lot of times as a pass rusher, you emulate somebody else's game that's similar to yours. Like when you talk about Myles Garrett's mentor was Bruce Smith. Reggie White, William Fuller, he emulated his game.
Sure.
Like, you go look at the guys that have your body type and you try to play that way. You use some of the same things that they used. That's what Nolan Smith did this offseason. He went out there and he worked out with Chris Long. And Chris Long was not one of the biggest pass rushers, but he had a motor. He wasn't that fast, but he had a motor. So he's learning at the feet of guys who have the similar body type that are trying to teach him how to play the position.
So I think the comp to Robert Mathis is a good one. I think Nolan Smith, if it all works out, could become like a Robert Mathis.
Robert was a monster.
Robert was awesome. Let me give you a comp, though, right? So at the time Robert Mathis was young in the NFL, the Colts were trying to win, right? They had Peyton Manning. They were trying to win a Super Bowl. Eventually, Robert Mathis became great, but he was young, and it took him a few years to become a Pro Bowler. Do you think if the Colts in 2004 could have traded Robert Mathis for Jason Taylor, they would have done it? I think they would have, because they had Jason Taylor was 30 years old at that point. He was better at that point. Now, eventually, Mathis overtook Taylor, right? Taylor aged, and Robert had. To me, that's what this is. It's trading away what could be great 5 years from now to what's great right now.
But you got to look at the upside, though, Joe. And to your point, in the now, that's an easy move to make. But, okay, let's say we go get T.J. Watt.
Yep.
And T.J. Watt's hurt half the season. And then you look on the flip side, and you see Nolan Smith over there doing his thing.
Yeah, well, then we'd regret it.
Yeah, but we don't have to do that because we got it.
But Nolan Smith could be hurt, or what we saw in the second half could be a hot streak, and then we sit there and we say, we didn't trade for T.J. Watt. He's got 15 sacks again.
And I also feel like it's something to be said about allowing these young guys to grow and mesh together.
Yeah.
Because you look at, okay, for example, CJ GJ. We were told regardless of how it played out, we don't know, that he wasn't a good fit in this defense. He wasn't a good fit. That's what we were told. But you got a bunch of young guys, the Georgia guys and the other guys that we have on here, that have the chance to grow and become better players together. I think that's something to that. That's that chemistry.
Well, and it worked for them last year. Really did.
And you talk about that. Look at the leap that Nakobe Dean took in one season. Now, unfortunately for him,
he's hurt.
He can't stay healthy.
Yep.
But look at that. I want to see that. I like homegrown, and I like them playing together. So I think they have a chance to be great.
I like homegrown too. I like greatness more. 215-592-9494. Where do you come down on this? It was thrown out yesterday on our show. It's been talked about a lot. It's funny, you said you saw people saying no-brainer in one direction. I saw people saying no-brainer in another direction, which is always funny when we have these trade conversations because some people believe it's like, that's crazy, I wouldn't do it, or that's crazy. Of course, where do you come down? 215-592-9494. Francisco back in the studio. Fran, would you do it? Would you trade Nolan Smith in a late-round pick for T.J. Watt?
It's very enticing, thus considering T.J. Watt's still productive at his age. But, Joe, I just can't. So you would get him, and then you have him for 1 year, then you'd have to extend him because I'm not trading for him just to get him for 1 year.
Of course.
You have to extend him. And then I just don't know what the production level is going to be into his 30s. I feel like most guys fall off. If you look at certain guys like Khalil Mack in his 30s, I know he had a 17-sack season a couple years ago, but he had a 6-sack season last year. Like, what am I going to get from T.J. Watt, really, over the course of 4 or 5 years? I'm looking at Nolan Smith, second half of last year, 23 years old, really had like a historic run into the playoffs, I feel like, at least. It was a big reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I'd rather take a chance on what Nolan Smith's going to be here, for 3-4 years, and not have to trade him away to get a guy that who knows when he's going to be in his 30s. So, and a guy that could get hurt into his 30s as well as he gets older. So, I would rather keep Nolan Smith here, even keep that late round pick.
Yeah, it's you don't know. I mean, pass rush in their 30s, you don't know. For every Kevin Green or Michael Strahan or Jason Taylor that ages well, there's a Hugh Douglas who ends up in Jacksonville, and he's cooked. I mean, you're right. You don't know how it's going to go.